Dessau in Germany, a 2-hour train ride from Berlin. Here in 1926, Walter Gropius built his higher academy for the arts, the Bauhaus. For the inhabitants of Dessau, the building that rose up before their eyes was a peculiar thing, with its glass walls, right angles, and flat roofs. It's one of the most famous buildings in the history of 20th century architecture. On December 4th, 1926, a steam train pulled into Dessau station. More than 1,000 guests, some from very far away, had made the journey for the inauguration of the Bauhaus. With the building located on the outskirts, the guests first passed through a city rooted in the past centuries. On the evening of its inauguration, spotlights illuminated the facade. Shining like a beacon, the Bauhaus seemed to be a symbol of renewed hope and recovered vitality 8 years after the tragedy of the Great War. Exhibitions, concerts, and theatrical performances followed one another over 2 days. A former student writes, "The huge building leaves a very special impression, almost unforgettable at night when all its rooms are lit up as on the day of inauguration, forming a visible cube circumscribed by the metal frame of its outer shell." Politicians, artists, and company chairmen crowded around Walter Gropius. At 43, the architect of the Bauhaus was also its director. It all began in 1919 in Weimar, in a pre-existent public building without any particular architectural merit. Founded by Gropius, the Bauhaus movement, which literally means the art of building, aimed to reconcile art and crafts to create a new industrial aesthetic, what we now call design. Every discipline was mobilized: metalworking, joinery, weaving, painting, but also stagecraft and dance. Color was taught in workshops run by Paul Klee and Vasily Kandinsky. Electrical appliances and furniture that continue to mark our daily lives were designed there. Experimental films were made. In 1925, the far right won the elections in Weimar and decided to shut down the school that was forced to find a home elsewhere. In Dessau, the city council, with its Social Democrat majority, released funds for the construction of a new home for the school that would give it a fresh lease on life. The city, with its 70,000 inhabitants, was an important industrial center. Dessau was an ideal location for an encounter between the aesthetic avant-garde and heavy industry. The land made available to Gropius was in a relatively isolated area, like this one, separated from the town proper by the railway line. The architect would not have to situate his building within the restrictions of the urban fabric. No sightlines or elevations needed to be respected. He was both the project's backer and its client. As a result, he could design a building adapted to the true needs of his school, the Higher Academy for the Arts, with its workshops, an area for the administrative department, a collective area with a theater and a refectory, studio accommodation for the students, housing for the teachers, and a technical school to train young apprentices as requested by the Dessau City Council. He could give it any shape he wanted. A campus with dispersed elements. A huge building with an inner yard. A drawn-out building. He opted for an interlocking system by linking the different elements in a deliberately asymmetric form. The school's different requirements determined the outline of the interlinked buildings. Each area has its coherence and specific design. The Bauhaus isn't an easy building to understand at first. One cannot immediately comprehend its form, meaning, and motion. To explain his design, Gropius liked to use aerial views. He claimed that the different sets of buildings and their layout then became clear. Junkers provided planes, and photographers revealed to the general public what modern architecture really was, suggesting that seeing the world from the sky would soon be the norm. Gropius, a resolute visionary, allowed all those who didn't yet have access to the airplane to abandon their static and passive approach to his work, and declared, "You must walk around the building to understand its materiality and the function of its various elements." The Bauhaus cannot be comprehended from a single angle. The building requires movement to be understood. The pedestrian must start walking and, in looking for the school's entrance, will only find a discrete door that seems to deny that the center, or best angle for vision, as in classical architecture, is located there. A global style of architecture appears, with vast surfaces and different heights corresponding to the various needs of the school. On one side, you find the Higher Academy for the Arts, a parallelepiped that houses the large Bauhaus workshops, a bare and functional area which would be given every symbolic opportunity for expansion, without any walls or partitions to give an impression of enclosure. Here, architecture is triumphant. It's all one sees, whether one is inside the building or outside it, actor or audience. Gropius wanted this to be the most powerful element of his project, the image that would mark people. The technical school required by the city council with its classrooms. No grandiose walls of glass here. The students would be less exposed to the gaze of others, as if hidden a little. Walls and corridors break up the work areas. The architectural style is clearly less complete and less prestigious than that in other parts of the building. The collective area where students of the technical school, those of the arts school, and the teachers could meet. It's a place for performance,